have a new Italian stallion on our hands. Eddie Howe's tactics that worked so well last season have had a couple of tweaks, and it looks like we might be even better. Different players causing different problems with runs in behind that we'd like to hope are going to lead to more chances, as Saturday maybe proved. And we have a firing Swede who you wouldn't bet against going for that golden boot. It's the very first last word of the season, Newcastle fans, and my God, is it a positive one. Aston Villa 1, Newcastle United 5, and all the big talking points, as many as I can cover in a short enough video, are coming up. So do us a favour and stick around. Wow. Fucking wow. Holy moly of mercy. Of sweet Jesus of all Nazareth. That was absolutely incredible. And I did not expect to be sitting here doing a last word video, the first of the season, under the circumstances of a 5-1 absolute demolition of a team we were told to be quite fearful of. Quite fearful. They're going to be in and around us. Difficult start. We absolutely wiped the floor with them like Joe Linton had just grabbed a mop and a bucket and dipped the mop in a bucket of those Aston Villa players on that field on Saturday and covered St James's Park with it. It could have been 8, it could have been 9, it could have been 10, and we have literally carried on exactly where we left off last season. Eddie Howe's Mags are still absolutely class. But on this video, we're going to talk about why Eddie Howe's Mags are maybe a little bit more class, and we might see a little bit more class as the season goes on. But before we get into that, Newcastle fans, on what is a glorious week, glorious day, glorious evening, it could be absolutely pissing down with rain, which I think it actually is right now, and I would not care. I would not care. But before we get into the good stuff, drop us a little like, drop us a little subscribe. If you're new around here and you like my opinion by the end of this, my match vlog for the Aston Villa game is just a little bit down below with some great interviews, spoke to fans of all ages, got some stories from one bloke who'd supported Newcastle for 66 years and said this was the best time to support the club in his time supporting them. I love to hear statements like that, so it's all down below. And if you haven't got black and white banter across all socials, please do, because my God, there has been some absolutely booming content on there the last 3 or 4 days. Just done a Aston Villa new series of mine for every team struggling to deal with Eddie Howe's Mags, and it's gone absolutely viral as hell. I can't post any of this stuff on YouTube, so if you do just follow Black and White Banter on YouTube, I'm going to ask you now why. I'm sure you've got other social media. Get Black and White Banter on other things now. So let's just fire straight into this. I'm sure you're still on cloud 9, just as I am. Just as I am. Yeah. That's relevant right now. I'll keep that. I'll reference the hand, the big fives, numerous points during this video. Absolutely breathtaking. We were all excited to get in there. The pints tasted nice. The journey on the metro tasted a little bit sweeter. The walk to the stadium was sweeter because we've been without it and we were all looking forward to it. But no one in their wildest dreams, I don't care who you are or what sort of meth you've been smoking, expected Newcastle to win 5-1 and play the way we did. Mother of mercy, what a statement, what a start to the season, and there's just so much to talk about. But as I always do on the last word videos, anyone who remembered these from last season, I'm going to try and condense these down into some of the main points that I took from Saturday's game. Number 1 has to be Eddie Howe's intensity is very much still our identity, and I'm going to share a photo on the screen of exactly what being put in a chokehold from Eddie Howe's team looks like for opposition coming to St James's Park. We smothered them like a swarm of bees. We were literally all up over them and they couldn't cope with it. They couldn't, and that has always been the foundation of Eddie Howe's teams, and I didn't expect that to change, but I maybe didn't expect that intensity in day one. You know, if you make mistakes, and we did, but if you do things and things don't quite work on the first match of the season, you maybe put it down to fitness. Not with this group of players. My God, I don't know what Eddie Howe's been feeding them. I don't know what Eddie Howe's been doing to them in the gym, but they were up for it on Saturday, and it was an absolute Joy to watch. But just that photo that I've shared there just tells you everything you need to know about what Eddie Howe's Newcastle team looks like and what we are as a team now. We do not let anyone rest for a second, and that was absolutely wonderful to see. Now, whilst on the topic of Eddie Howe's tactics, what I was fascinated by on Saturday, and in the aftermath, once you watch it back, once you look at the stats and everything like that, was how Eddie Howe, being the obsessive manager he is, has not only done what we love about him with that high press and the intensity that, like I just mentioned, but he's also tweaked his tactics because he's developing himself as a coach all the time. We saw in America he was playing 3 at the back, but what I found fascinating on Saturday was when we got battered 3-0 in April down at Villa Park. Awful day, probably Eddie Howe's worst, and that's probably why it's stuck in his head, being the obsessive manager he is. One of the reasons we were constantly getting caught out was because our man marking was not disciplined enough in our press. Aston Villa were exploiting that, and to be totally honest with you, Bruno was one of the main culprits for that at Villa Park that day. He wasn't tight enough to his man. They always had a spare in midfield, and they overran us because of that. We weren't disciplined at all, and the highlights when you watched it back that day, because I was down there, so you never get as the same viewpoint being in the stands when you've been on the beers all day. It showed that, and I think what we saw on Saturday was a much more disciplined press. And again, I'm going to share a photo of exactly what that disciplined press looked like. All of these photos, by the way, have been taken from a Twitter account. So if it does come back to bite us on the arse that I've shared their graphics, so be it. I don't think they'd lose too much sleep over it. I'm not making the same points, but that's where these graphics have come from. I just wanted to mention that in case someone from the YouTube police or someone gives us a slap on the wrist. But they are great graphics and they're fascinating. And as you can see on that photo, everyone is so disciplined in the press, and it consumed Aston Villa. They didn't know what to do. They didn't have any space on the right-hand side through Matty Cash and Diaby, which I was worried about in the build-up to this game. The left-hand side, they were a bit more restricted because of the makeshift left-backs and whatnot that they were playing with, and they just couldn't cope. And what I am noticing is Eddie Howe is now trying to adapt as a manager, and that's what excites me about him, because he's never the sort of bloke to rest on his laurels. But we knew last season we got caught out on numerous occasions where we didn't necessarily have a plan B when teams put every man behind the ball. That's not what happened on Saturday. Villa were very much wanting to go for this, and that's what probably fucked them over, if I'm being honest with you. That they continued playing a high press all the way through the game. Don't know why Emery didn't change it, but it just played in our hands over and over and over. And the fact that Eddie Howe's changed his tactics, and not only that, but learned from a defeat in the way that I noticed on Saturday, was absolutely wonderful. And long may that continue. Second point for me has to be Mr. Sandro Tonali, the Italian stallion. We knew he drinks Moretti. He apparently likes spaghetti and eats spaghetti. Don't know whether that's his dish from where he is in Italy, from where he's originally from. But my God, what a player. And I am going to do a more in-depth video on Sandro Tonali and what we learned about his performance, how he bedded in with the other midfielders, and that'll probably come tomorrow, so you don't want to miss that, because that'll just be focusing a little bit more on him. But my God, he was one of the main talking points. He was all over the field. His goal was wonderful. I've said from day dot, if you've watched any of my videos, that he's not a number 6. A lot of people think he was coming in to release Bruno and be a strict sit in the D. He's not that. He can do that, but that's not what you get with Sandro. You get so much more. He will cover every blade of grass as he did on Saturday. He will make that run, which I'd love to see more of. He's maybe not been as well known for that in Milan, but it was such an intelligent run, such a great finish. He played the ball for Botman to flick for Isak for the second goal. He was just instrumental. And the fact that this guy does not even know the pace of the Premier League, and everyone was surprised he was in. I was. Most people I spoke to before the game we thought Eddie Howe was going to bring him in slowly. Eddie Howe has only done that because he's seen what an absolute baller he is. And in pre-season, I've said it numerous times, he's been reserved. We haven't seen a performance like that in any of the pre-season games by no means. Whether he's just kept it in the tank, whether he's just risen to the occasion of the first competitive match of the season, I don't know. But we are seeing a guy who not only is going to get better in his link up with Bruno, but he can do a bit of everything. Set pieces, dart and runs into the box, link up in and around the box, can drop, as we saw, as deep to Botman and Shea, give us the ball here and play it himself with a diagonal. He's comfortable with his left foot. He had 100% pass completion on Saturday. All of his left-footed passes were complete. I looked at a lot of his stats, which we'll talk about more in the other video. But my God, are we getting a player? And he's only going to get better, and that's what's exciting. Not only is this Newcastle team, I believe, going to get better than that performance, I think he is just going to grow and grow and grow and grow. And you could be talking about maybe one of the signings of the season at the end of the year, fingers crossed. My God, what a player. What a player. I don't care if he's not smiling. I am. That's all that matters. If he keeps playing like that. Do not care if he's not grinning ear to ear every single time he walks around Newcastle. Point number 3, for me, certainly has to be Anthony Gordon and Ashley Barnes, Harvey Barnes, and what they are going to offer us tactically in an attacking third and how we are going to look a bit different. Now, what I noticed on Saturday is a very different Newcastle team that I think is going to create more chances by having 2 players in Gordon Barnes who are fighting at each other's throats, like Isak and Wilson, to play on that left-hand side. Eddie Howe's probably going to keep it that way most of the season. But we are also seeing 2 players who want to get in behind, mainly Barnes as well. Gordon does like to drop deeper. They are very different as players, and he will probably be more willing to run into the centre of the park and take a man on than what Barnes will necessarily. But what you are seeing is constant runs and looking for that pass, that through ball, to be in behind. And it happened time and time again. Barnes, and I'm going to focus this more on him because that's what I noticed more of in the second half. Gordon was amazing in his game, but he offered a little bit more, dropping deeper for the ball. To have players who want to get in behind is great because we have players like Bruno and Tonali who love that. They want to see a man running off the shoulder of a defender of opposition so they can ping a pass through. Bruno's precision with his passing, especially through balls, we know that. Tonali, we only get a taste for what he can do with the ball at his feet, but he's going to thrive off that as well. And that's only going to create chances. 6 of our 16 shots on target on Saturday were created from through balls and running in behind. And that's good. And, you know, we saw goals from it. Look at Jacob Murphy's ball to Barnes. He was on the move, and Barnes was constantly making a run in the second half. Not always getting it, but wanting it. And that's going to add another element to our attack, because if you think what St. Maximin offered, coming deep, ball at feet, and then he tries to take on 2 or 3 and make something happen that way, normally going inside rather than hugging the touchline. And I'm excited, and it adds another element, and I can totally understand why Howe wanted to bring Barnes in, but also we're getting that new, what feels like a new sign in Gordon, and them 2 on the left-hand side is only going to be good for us. So I'm looking forward to seeing that new element of our attack. I really, really am. Point number 4 for me has to be the big old Swede. We were all talking about him in the build-up, and I've said lots of times that I've been excited to see him with a full pre-season under his belt. We knew what he could do when he came in halfway through the season last year. But this is a man now firing on all cylinders, and to watch him play, he's explosive, he's dynamic, his link-up play is good. He's got that poaching aspect, as we saw with his first goal, and the second goal, our third, to chip the ball in a high-pressure, panicky situation like he did, as calmly as he did, is exactly why you pay £60 million. And a man of his age to be doing things like that in the Premier League on day 1 of the season, I would not be surprised if he is somewhere about the Golden Boot at the end of the year if he stays fit. And I think he's brilliant, and that's no disservice to Callum Wilson. Callum Wilson came on and looked as bright as that. He could have had a hat-trick. Callum Wilson, when he came on, should have definitely had 2. And that's amazing. That's an amazing thing to have. Hopefully them 2, between them, can get 30 goals this season. That's only going to make us better. Goals was an area we struggled in last year. But Isak, for me, is the vocal point. I'm going to want him as our main striker all the way through the season. Again, no disservice to Callum Wilson, but he just looked class. And that's game 1. The sharpness is to continue. I cannot wait. I absolutely love it. Gimme a striker from Sweden. We've got one, and he's fucking class. The final point for me to finish this video is not from a tactical or an analysis point of view necessarily. I just wanted to say that what I noticed on Saturday was, yes, it was amazing. You might be surprised to hear me say this, but that was not a complete Newcastle performance. We were sloppy in certain areas with the ball at the back, particularly in the first half, that created a lot of Aston Villa's chances. We were the creators of our own downfall, and I still think we have so much to offer. We can tighten things a bit more at the back. We can be a little bit crisper in midfield. We can be a little bit more clinical despite scoring 5 goals. And the fact we can demolish a team in the way that we did, not just the scoreline, who are fighting for European football and going to be in and around that top 6, we keep getting told, as easily and comfortable as we did on Saturday, but still have a lot more to give, which we'll need to if we're going to get anything at Man City on Saturday, is absolutely incredible, and it's exciting as hell. It is only the first game of the season, but what a way to start the Premier League season, my God. Newcastle fans, if you've liked this video, drop us a like, drop us a subscribe if you haven't already. Let me know your thoughts. Maybe there's something that was more eye-opening for you that you've taken away from the game that I haven't mentioned. Let us know. I would love to hear it. And touch down for that Sandro Tonali video that will be following this one 24 hours or so after it. Have a great week, Newcastle fans, because I'm sure you will, as we all will. Eddie Howe's mags are back, and Eddie Howe's mags, very similar to last year, are absolutely class. See you on the next one.